Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Mirror Dungeon solo video. Before I get into it though, I'd like to first say thank you for 1,000 subscribers. I'm genuinely grateful that you guys like my content enough to achieve this milestone, so thank you. Anyway, you're not here to listen to me talk about my YouTube career. You're here for the man of the hour and Limbus Company's resident edgelord, Wild Hunt Heathcliff. This guy has so much going on in this kit that it is genuinely difficult to pick a spot to start talking about him. Every single part of him meshes and works with every other part to give him so many modifiers that it turns him into an absolute powerhouse of an identity. To start with, we have his own personal status effect of Coffin, which ranges from 0 to 10 and serves 3 different purposes. First is just for pure damage. The more he has, the harder he hits. The second is to give his skill 2 more attack weight, and the last is to enable his revive mechanic when any of his allies happen to die. Of course, by nature of him being alone, his revive mechanic is entirely useless here, so no reason to talk about that. The only thing you really need to know about Coffin is that he gains it by either killing enemies or using his skill 3, and he gains even more if he does both of them. The more important aspect of this kit is his second unique status effect of Dullahan. The only way to gain this status effect is by using his counter, which we will talk about in a moment, and it essentially functions as an alternate form. When he's in this form, it essentially does 2 things, the first being giving his skill 2 even more attack weight, and the second is changing his skill 3 from the positive coin skill Requiem into the much more powerful negative coin skill Lament, Mourn, and Despair. Finally, the last important thing to talk about is his counter. This being the first ever clashable counter, it has all of the regular properties of a normal counter, with it automatically triggering off the first unopposed attack, but instead of tanking the damage and dealing damage back, it clashes with the skill instead. If you win the clash, then it goes off no problem, but if you lose it, then you get absolutely nothing. The only other thing to mention is that if he uses this while he has Dullahan, and is above 15 sanity, it will be converted into his skill 3 instead. This makes it so that as long as he is on Dullahan, he can basically use his skill 3 whenever he wants. Aside from that, he is also a typical sinking identity. He does lack sinking count for the most part, but in terms of raw damage, he more than makes up for it. To start this run off, we take both Red Order and Melted Spring for our starting gifts, and enter Lake World for the first floor. We do happen to find skeletal crumbs early on, before making it to the boss against the Twin Hook Pirates. The bleed they inflict could prove to be a threat to anyone except Erlking Heathcliff. His honestly absurd power level, combined with just how well he does against multiple enemies, makes this fight incredibly easy. Of all the starting floors, I'd say the only one that could actually prove to be a challenge would be Guido, but even then, I'm not really sure. We take Thorny Path for our reward and head into the Unconfronting for the next floor. Here we instantly get Erlking's best ego gift, Rags, as well as Eldtree Snare, Bloody Gadget, and his second best ego gift, Greycoat. We also find Illusory Hunt before heading into the boss against Cromer. Now one might think that by having access to Rags, forcing corrosion would be fairly easy, but that's not the case. Rags has the passive effect of increasing the amount of sanity you regain when winning clashes, and Heathcliff's skill 3 automatically restores sanity after its use if he is below 0. This means the only way to really force corrosion is just by doing it normally. We haven't found any ego resource generating gifts yet, but we are still capable of doing this. Heathcliff fuels AEDD, and with the starting bonus resources, we have a single use of Yas Senyata. I've already used Binds on an earlier floor, so can't actually use that one here. Heathcliff does also have the ability to avoid being staggered if he mounts Dullahan the same turn, but Cromer's Gaze is one of the few things that are capable of ignoring this. Cromer gladly decides to demonstrate this for us when she inflicts Gaze the second time, but once we recover we can knock her into her second phase, which we make short work of.
즉시 사라지리라. 그것이 세상이니라. 그것이 곧 나이니라. 순환의 비가를 순하다. 너는 즉시 사라지리라. 그것이 세상이니라. 그것이 곧 나이니라.
자, 출발해볼까요?
목을 내놓고 있도록. 직접 발견. 직접 발견.
저기, 저 개체부터 처리하면 편할 것 같아요. 여기다가 말하면 녹음이
달릴
되는
시간이다.
건가?
목을 내놓고 있도록.
여러분에게 도움이 되었으면 좋겠습니다.
목을 내놓고 있도록. 직접 발견. 속에서
부위가 날아갔어요.
듀라니아. 목을 내놓고 있도록. 그럴 수 없다면 직접 후회를 새겨.
제압 개체에게 큰 피해를 준 것 같아.
We take Midwinter Nightmare for our reward before reluctantly heading into To Be Cleaved instead of Dregs of the Manor like I wanted. We fuse Broken Compass before willingly heading into an elite fight against Mr. Rules of the Backstreet himself, Jun.
100초만 기다려줘.
This fight was probably the hardest fight in the entire run, and likely would have been actually impossible if not for Heathcliff having both a clashable counter, an anti-stagger mechanic, and Grey Coat. The biggest problem with this fight is the absurd amount of bleed that the Kurokumo apply, forcing us to basically use nothing but counters for the entire fight. It's honestly a miracle that clashing with a counter doesn't tick down a bleed stack. The second biggest problem is that unlike regular counters, clashable ones can trigger regular counters, which means yes, Rules of the Backstreets. On the second turn of this fight, I get incredibly lucky with speed. Jun moves before I could, which meant my counters would target him instead of his minions. Of course, this triggered his own counter, which if not for Greycoat would have likely killed me. We ended up doing just enough damage so that on the next turn when Jun attacks, we can stagger him before he uses Rules of the Backstreets again. All I can say is thank God counters don't trigger bleed, otherwise I don't know what I would have done.
목을 내놓고 있도록.
조금 좀 나아가고 있네요.
달릴
계속
시간이다.
힘내주세요.
목을 내놓고 있도록.
제압 개체에게 큰 피해를 준 것 같아. 유진의 기간다운 완벽한 동작이었어. 우와, 사람도 깜짝.
내놓고 있도록. 멋져 잠들어. 속에서 있도록.
상황이 좋다고 할 수는 없지만 여러분은 하실 수 있을 거예요.
을 내놓고 있도록. 찢어 놓아주마.
After that fight, we make it to the actual boss against Fairy Longlegs. He's similar to the Jun fight in that he can get a nasty bleed stack going if you let him, but unlike before, it never gets completely out of hand. Even if the bleed was a problem, it wouldn't really matter. With both Grey Coat and an anti-stagger, no amount of damage truly scares us. I don't think there's a single skill in the entire game that works better with Grey Coat than Erlking Heathcliff's skill 3. That thing legitimately heals him for half his health every time he rolls tails. It's honestly absurd.
기다리는 거 못해.
을 내놓고 있도록. 찢어 발견.
한쪽 부위가 완전히 결정되었네요.
찢어 발견.
시원하게 박살 나는구만.
그러려.
다른 관리법.
을 내놓고 있도록. 직접 후회를 새겨.
We take Grandeur for our reward and head into a certain world for the next floor. Here we buy Imposed Weight and an extra skill 3 while also fusing Distant Star before we head in to face Nelly. Nelly's a pretty easy fight, to be honest. Even if we weren't capable of beating her skills, which we are, it doesn't matter because we are a sinking identity, and by the time I finish the sentence, she's already at minus 45 sanity. Really though, Nelly's only ever really difficult if you're using an identity without good clash power. But by the time you reach her, you've usually gotten some way to work around it.
제가 도움이 될지는 모르겠지만
을 내놓고 있도록. 을 내놓고 있도록. 함께 사라져라.
이 공격은 꽤 먹히는 것 같아요.
와 함께 사라져라.
승객이 딱콩 한 방 먹였어.
을 내놓고 있도록. 내 안에 갇혀 죽어라.
시원하네. 아, 쓸모없는 독보주는 좋은 공격이었어.
양손을 잘 찌른 것 같네요.
내 안에 갇혀 죽어라.
칼날이 잘 드네요. 아마 그 공격이 약점이었겠죠?
We take Devil's Share for our reward and head into Murder on the Warp Express for the final floor. Here we buy Oracle, Crystallized Blood, and another skill 3. We also fuse Artistic Sense before heading into the final boss against Cassetti. Honestly, at this point there's nothing else I can really say other than sit back and enjoy the massacre.
비록 그 과정에서 희생이 나올 수 있겠지만
을 내놓고 있도록.
내가 세키라로서 너희가 죽지 않도록 도와줄게.
열하지. 달릴 시간이다. 목을 내놓고 있도록.
약점을 잘 찌른 것 같아.
칼날이 잘 드네요. 아마 그 공격이 약점이었겠죠? 조금씩 나아가고 있네요.
목을 내놓고 있도록. 무차 잠들어.
완전 과감한 판단이었어요.
준비하듯이 말하지 좀 마시라니까.
비명을 질러.
혼자서 적을 전부 쓸어버리시다니.
목을 내놓고 있도록. 직접 놓아주마.
한 번에 이렇게 마치 막한 것만.
내 안에 갇혀 죽어라.
이 공격은 꽤 먹혀들 것 같은데.
내가 배고파 있어.
도록 달릴 시간이다.
그치?
목을 내놓고 있도록. 우리와 함께 사라져라.
방금 공격 다음에 다른 개체에게도 다시 해볼래? 영상으로 만들면
우리와
괜히
함께
주관하기도
사라져라.
힘들잖아. 승리기 딱콩 한 방 먹였어. 상단에서 알려준 대로 잘했어. 역시 상단 프로그램을 진행한 건
우리와 함께 사라져라.
뭘 잘못했는지 아는 것부터가 시작이랬어.
우리와 함께 사라져라.
적합한 관리법이었어요. 다행이에요.
끝인가? 정말 한 톨도 남지 않았나? 그렇다면 어째서 이 분노가 끝나지 않을까? 그치?
And that's how I soloed Mirror Dungeon 4 hard using only Wild Hunt Heathcliff. He is an absolute monster of an identity. If not for things like bleed and other statuses, I'd go as far to say he could probably solo everything. I'd highly recommend doing this run if you want to go on a power trip for a few hours, although it is best you find Rags and Greycoat as early as possible. Those really make him shine, and it's not the same without them. Anyway, that's it for me. Thanks again for 1,000 subscribers. Next time we'll be using this identity, so if you aren't subscribed already, you know what to do. Goodbye.